Hey everybody, Sol here. I have only one rule here. If it's animated, I'll comment on it. And I've been working on my ectocomframdibulizer for so long that I forgot I had a review to do. You know us mega geniuses, the only thing we are more than forgetful is boastful about our mega genius. And you know, since we're standing in the towering gigantic shadow of my mammoth intellect, I can think of no better thing to review than the Jimmy Neutron series. That's right, we're finally gonna take a look at it. So, we're gonna spend the next couple weeks looking at the Jimmy Neutron franchise. Starting, of course, with its cinematic opus, Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius is a 3D animated movie directed by John A. David, produced by Nickelodeon Movies, O Entertainment, and DNA Productions, that began life as a series of shorts from 1995, with the title character being called Jimmy Quasar, that were intended to be a pilot for a TV concept. Another pilot was later made in 1998, with the character's name changed to Jimmy Neutron, entitled Runaway Rocket Boy, which loosely followed the same plot as the future Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius movie. The film was released in 2001 and distributed by Paramount Pictures, where it went on to be nominated for the very first Academy Award for Best Animated Feature alongside Pixar's Monsters, Inc. and DreamWorks' Shrek, with Shrek being the winner. The movie then subsequently spawned a television series on Nickelodeon in 2002 that ran for 3 seasons, and a sequel film was planned, but never made it into production. Ooh boy, that is a lot of backstory. It's interesting to think that the guy who once put faces on thumbs would one day be nominated for an Oscar. It just goes to show that if you keep your mind at something and you never give up, you will achieve something great, I guarantee it. But you're not here for a pep talk, you're here for a review. So, without further ado, let's take a look at Jimmy Neutron, Boy Genius. Okay folks, we're starting off nice and easy with the plots, alright? Don't want to overload your tiny, non-genius brains, right? Anyway, the story follows a young boy named Jimmy Neutron who has a genius-level intellect and isn't afraid to show it off. He spends half his time tinkering with all sorts of gizmos, gadgets, who's-its, and what's-its galore, and the other half being a normal kid who goes to elementary school with his best friend Carl Weezer, his other friend Sheen Estevez, and his female arch-rival Cindy Vortex. One day, Jimmy intercepts a message from deep space that seems alien in nature, so he attempts to communicate with the sender directly. When the aliens, known as the Yokians, find his message and see an image of Jimmy's parents, their ruler, King Goobot V, heads straight for Earth with his armada, wanting to kidnap all the adults of Retroland for sinister reasons. Jimmy, along with all the kids in town, have to band together to save their parents from their gooey extraterrestrial grief. In all honesty, the plot isn't getting top marks in its creativity class, that's for sure. But in even more honesty, it hardly seems to matter. This is a simple plot about simple things that gets presented simply with oodles of charm, so there's not much to squawk about without sounding like a huge jiggling jackass, so I'm not gonna bother. Besides, I'm too busy trying to get the tritium-powered Songophalator out of this flower thing that I don't even know why I have this, but I just can't seem to get it to work. So let's talk about the characters. Given that I'm going to be doing a much more in-depth look at these characters in the coming weeks with my next reviews, I'm just going to do a quick overview here. First, there's James Isaac Neutron, also known as Jimmy. Jimmy is a genius who loves to build stuff with questionable scientific applications and with varying levels of success. When his space probe gets intercepted by the Yokians and all the kids' parents are abducted, Jimmy must rally everyone together to save the day. Jimmy is just, well, he's Jimmy. Not to say he's bad, it's just he's a kid who can build stuff. At least in the movie, but there's not much to say about Jimmy in general. He's somewhat cocky, but well-meaning, and there's nothing wrong with that. Then there's Carl Weezer, Jimmy's timid best friend with a love for llamas who helps Jimmy with his experiments. Carl is probably the best character here, since he's voiced by the ever-illustrious Rob Paulsen, who does a fantastic job of breathing new life into what would normally be a very stock character. Literally 100% of his likability is in his voice, so I will give you one tender kiss on the cheek for that, Rob. Aww. Then there's Sheen Estevez, a spastic Mexican boy with a near-orgasmic love of a superhero called Ultralord. Sheen's explosive, peculiar personality is certainly downplayed here, and as a result, he doesn't make too much of an impact. Obviously that would change down the line, but that's definitely how it is here. There's also the token girl side characters, Cindy Vortex and Libby Folfax, who are an intelligent girl and a hip-hop loving girl, respectively. Oh, did I mention they're girls? Don't forget that. That's important. That they're girls. This movie wants you to remember that they're girls, and that girls are like so totally great, you know? Because
girl power!
Okay, anyway, the villains of the whole shebang are the Yokians, a race of ovum-like aliens who invade Earth after receiving Jimmy's communications toaster, with their leader, King Goobot V, and his advisor, Brother Ooblar, being the primary antagonists. King Goobot is very standard villain fare. He doesn't do or say much that separates him from the average mustache-twirling evil dude, so in regular fashion, I ain't got much to say about him. Same goes with Ooblar. He's a bit silly, but does nothing of particular note. You might have noticed the characters are not really pleasing this movie's girlfriend in all the right ways, if you know what I mean. And I'm pretty sure I know the reason why that is, but all in good time, my friends. Speaking of good, let's move on to the good things. Now, first things first, let's talk about the science-y angle this movie takes with Jimmy's inventions and such. I commend the fact that the creators didn't just make up a bunch of shit and pretend it would work under the eternal rule that science equals magic. Not to say everything could be done, it couldn't, but I'm saying they at least go about it in a semi-scientific way, which is nice for a movie primarily aimed at young children who are just now learning that finger plus nose equals brain hemorrhage. Except when they're in space without oxygen or spacesuits, which is extremely unscientific. But there's a good reason for why that is. And that reason is
Spoon, moon, moon, spoon, 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 June, 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 spittoon, spittoon, spittoon!
In general though, I appreciate that this film is just one of those things you can watch casually and enjoy on all levels. Sure, it's not particularly original, or deep, or gripping in any sense of the word, but it's just an honest-to-bulge, fun, and endearing sort of experience that brings you back to the time when you were a little shit-headed kid and the worst things you had to worry about were eating all your Fruit Loops before they became soggy, or not getting yelled at for not doing your math homework. It's a special kind of self-imbued nostalgia that permeates every frame of this film like a warm, fuzzy blankie named Blankerton that goes well with the retro 1950s-esque aesthetic. Jeez, could I find any more snobby and shit-eating way to say that this movie is nostalgic? I don't mean nostalgic just to me, though. I mean that it has this nostalgic aesthetic to it that, well, it makes you feel like you're a kid again. It takes you back to a simpler time when, yeah, you could just run around and do whatever the hell you pleased. It's a nice feeling. It kind of makes me understand why people are so rabidly protective of their childhoods. Because they want to keep that feeling alive. They don't want that to go away. Jeez, you know, when you think of it that way, I should be less hard on the nostalgia blinded. And I kind of like that feeling, to be honest. I think I should stay that way. I think I should... Nah, you know what, never mind. I got taxes to do! Now, let me preface my first comment about the bad things in this movie with a little disclaimer. I don't hate the early 2000s. They were very interesting and lots of awesome and terrible things happened during those years. I remember them fondly, I do. I'm down with the 2000s. So with that out of the way, let me dole out a big squirt of critique by saying that this movie is very early 2000s. How do I mean? Well, it's got the incredibly obnoxious, impossible to ignore pop soundtrack of relevant artists that basically screams to your face, "Buy our soundtrack!" The forced girl power angle that the side females have is an artificial layer of characterization that has absolutely zero bearing on the overall plot. The quote-unquote cool kid who makes all the girls discover their latent ability to produce creamy filling from their panty regions, the played-out kids rule parents drool attitude, and the cold realization that parents are important and probably shouldn't be fed to giant alien chickens. You know, all that sort of stuff. Not to mention the animation, which is, well, I will say that some aspects of it still look pretty damn good, even today, but for the most part, the computer animation errs more on the uncomfortably awkward side. All the skin tones have this unnatural shading and odd shininess to them that makes them look more like plastic dolls than people. Though I will say that all this awkwardness does make for some really damn hilarious freeze frames. Oh, look at that. Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius is quite a mixed bag if you ask me, and since you're watching this video, you did ask me. While it does excel in aesthetic charm and having some genuinely awesome scenes, it lacks strong pillars of character, story, or anything that makes a movie deeper than a spilled puddle of thin borscht. Still though, I can't deny this movie's likability, even when magnified under the piercing stare of time's cruel gaze. It's a piece of work that succeeds in nothing more than making you smile, even if it's not giving you anything close to a real, bona fide brain blast. I give Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius. Three eyes out of 5. So, Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius is it watchable? Well, I mean, the animation's not horrible or anything like that, but it's definitely off-putting at times. I'd say yes, but just don't expect it to be as polished as something from DreamWorks or Pixar. Is it enjoyable? Yeah, I would say for the most part it is. In fact, my favorite scene is the scene where they're all taking off in the spaceships from Retroland, they're flying off into space, and then that remix of Kids in America is playing. That scene is fucking sweet! But yes, I would say that it is. Is it memorable? Oh, you better believe that it is. Not just in the hearts and minds of people who watched it when they were kids, but this movie was also nominated for an Oscar, and it not only went on to spawn 1 TV series, but 2 TV series. And we're gonna be getting to those eventually. For now, that's all I have to say about this movie, and I'm gonna try and finish my ectocomframdibulizer because I really do need it. I need it to prevent World War XII. Don't look at me like that. I like to prepare for the future. Would you like to stay up to date on the latest EyeofSol news, as well as contribute directly to my channel? You can find my Twitter page, my Facebook page, and my link to my Patreon page there on the screen for you, as well as in the description. I update the Twitter and Facebook pages every day, so if you want to check out news on the show, as well as updates, just follow the links here.
The kids across the land, there's no need to argue, parents just don't understand. They don't understand. They ain't gonna get it. No, okay. I remember one year my mom took me school shopping. It was me, my brother, my mom, and my pop, and my little sister. All hopped in the car and headed downtown to the Gallery Mall. My mom started bugging with the clothes we chose. I didn't say nothing at first, I just turned my nose. She said, "What's wrong? This shirt costs $50. I said, "This shirt is whack and it's not worth $1." The next half hour was the same old